to share a few thoughts with you. Here we are 2 days after. Yesterday, I went through my thoughts on the election. We are just starting to get the unadjusted exit polls, and I hope to be able to share more with you about that later on in the program. But it looks like the voter suppression efforts, where Chris Kobach and the Republican secretaries of state around the country threw people off the voting rolls, and so they voted, but they had to vote provisional ballots. They thought they voted. They participated in exit polls, things like that, and they thought all was good, but turns out no, not so much. Anyhow, I'll get to that a little later on in the program. But a few other thoughts that I wanted to share with you about what I think is going on right now and things that I think that we should be looking for, and where we're going to go as a country. First of all, I see this major battle going on right now inside the Republican Party for the mind or the ear of Donald Trump. This is a man who, throughout his life, has been relatively apolitical. He's been a Democrat most of his life. Titularly, in name only, but not really active. He's buddy with Republican politicians like Rudy Giuliani. He was buddy with Democratic politicians like Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. I'm not so sure he was such a buddy with the Clintons, frankly, but he knows how to butter up politics. His whole thing was all about making money. The point of that is that he's got some things that he won the election on, and he may have a few of them as actual core convictions. For example, the infrastructure in the United States sucks. And all over the world, everything is modern and new. You can take a train across Europe and set a wine glass on the table, a red wine glass, a glass of red wine, with a stem and the whole bit, on the table of a train that's going 250 miles an hour across Germany or France or Spain, and walk to the bathroom, come back, there's not a drop. It doesn't even vibrate. And in the United States, no, not so much. The airports around the world are spiffy and shiny and new, and here it's like it's third world. Now, why is that? It's because in the 1980s, during the Reagan administration, the massive tax cuts for very, very wealthy individuals and for corporations. Keep in mind, before Reagan came into office, about a third of the federal budget, 32 or 34% of the federal budget, was paid for with corporate income taxes. Today, it's 11%, which means you and I made up the rest of it in part, but it also means that government just stopped spending a lot of money on some things. Now, Reagan also jacked up the military budget. The military budget now is larger than basically every other country in the world combined. And so where'd that money come from? It came from our infrastructure. There's a fascinating piece in the Financial Times right now. It's premium content. You've got to be a subscriber to read it. But it's a fascinating article about how and this is what I was telling you yesterday, you'll recall. Yesterday I said Donald Trump is going to do one of two things. He's either going to go Paul Ryan, and he's going to, gut the government, dial back on spending, cut Social Security, Medicare, kill Obamacare, all those things, and go totally full-blown right-wing neoliberal, in which case we are going to slide into the worst depression you ever saw. Or he's going to do what Ronald Reagan did, which is he's going to borrow all the Democratic proposals. He's going to borrow money. He's going to spend it on infrastructure. He's going to rebuild the country, literally, physically. Rebuild our roads, rebuild our bridges, rebuild our schools, rebuild our airports. It'll run up the national debt, but frankly, Japan's national debt is twice the size of ours. The national debt is simply a place, it's a safe place where savers can put their money. So that's not so much of a problem. It'll run up the national debt, but most importantly, it'll stimulate the economy like hell. And you'll see the stock market go up another 500 points, and or 5,000 maybe, and you'll see wages start going up. if Trump does what Reagan did, which is to become a Democrat. Now, the question is, see, Reagan was able to do this because the Republicans in the House and Senate at that time said, you know, we don't agree with this kind of spending. We campaigned against it, as did Ronnie Reagan. But we'll go along with it because the president wants it and because it will help the economy. We all, everybody understands Keynesian economics. We give lip service to voodoo economics, but we understand Keynesian economics. So we'll do this and we'll pretend we didn't. And unless you were paying attention and alive during the Reagan years, people don't realize that that's what happened. Reagan basically spent his way out of the worst recession since the Great Depression. And, if Trump does that, particularly with infrastructure, which is a jobs-intensive way of spending money, then, it could jack things back up. The question, though, is you've got this shadow government, which I started talking about earlier in the hour. The Koch network is as large and as powerful as the Republican Party. And the Koch network is genuinely committed to, at least my interpretation of it, to corporate and to the rule of America by corporations and billionaires. And that means no money is to be spent on anything that corporations and billionaires don't use. Now, certain parts of our infrastructure are useful to corporations and billionaires. We transport products on our roads and our rails, but they're adequate right now for that. And billionaires don't ride Amtrak, and they don't go through public airports. They don't care. I don't know if you've been to LaGuardia recently. The private airports, the ones that the billionaires actually do use, in New York, in Los Angeles, in a number of cities around the country, the private airports are being massively upgraded to handle all these corporate jets for all these billionaires. They are spiffier than you could ever imagine. But public, not so much. So it may well be that the Freedom Caucus guys, the people who are there because of Koch money, the so-called Tea Partiers, that they will fight him on this. And if so, it's going to get real interesting. And it's also going to get real interesting which side do the Democrats come down on, because, the Democratic Party is in disarray right now. It has no leadership. Donna Brazile is the theoretical head of the DNC, but she's been outed now as not only having given questions to Hillary Clinton for the Trump debate, but also apparently on at least one occasion, maybe two, having given questions to Hillary Clinton during the Bernie debates. So, I have a feeling she's out on her keister. So who's going to run the DNC? And it's not just who's going to run the DNC. It's like, what direction is the Democratic Party going to go? And you and I play a role in that if you're registered as a Democrat, or if you just want to participate as a Democrat. And now is a really important time to start showing up at Democratic Party meetings. Today is the day, if you've got an extra 5 minutes, to call your local Democratic Party and say, where's the next meeting? I want to be there. Ralph Nader has this wonderful new book out called Breaking Through Power, in which he suggests that if, there's 435 congressional districts in the United States. If in every one of those districts, 1,000 people were to organize and monthly hold meetings and invite their member of Congress to those meetings, that we could basically take control of Congress. And, that's only 435,000 people. And frankly, I don't think it needs to be 1,000 people. I think probably 100 people could do it. And it's a tiny percent of our population to do something like that. Well, why not have the Democratic Party do that? Except that, there's a lot of places that are entirely Republican controlled. I think it would frankly be better if it was nonpartisan. And we simply did it. So there's that. There's also the battle. I started this whole rant with a riffing about the battle for the mind of Donald Trump. The main people who helped put him into power, the people who stood behind him and beside him publicly, the public figures, Chris Christie, who is a currently elected public figure and may soon be going to prison if if the revelations of Bridgegate, get turned in his direction. Rudy Giuliani, who is, you look up corrupt ex-politician in the dictionary, and there's his picture. I mean, even his chief of police went to prison. But in any case, Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie and Newt Gingrich, who really started the hatred of the Clintons back in the 80s, and helped lead the caucus room conspiracy. These have been his public face, but his private face, the people who actually made him president, were Michael Savage, Alex Jones, Steve Bannon, and Roger Ailes. And my expectation, these guys, Michael Savage is a brilliant radio talk show host. I disagree with everything he says. Politically, we're on absolute opposite sides of the spectrum. But frankly, of all the right-wing talk show hosts out there, I can't listen to Sean Hannity. It's pablum. Limbaugh, these days occasionally has high moments where he's fascinating, but, by and large, is just blither. But Michael Savage is a genius when it comes to doing talk radio. He really knows how to connect with an audience. And much like Bernie was a regular on this program, Bernie was on this program every Friday for 11 years. Donald Trump was a regular on Michael Savage's program, I don't know for how many years, but for a long time. And in a way, Trump fed Savage, but Savage also educated Donald Trump in his worldview. Alex Jones, same deal. I don't think Jones is as gifted as Savage, but for his audience, Alex Jones is a brilliant programmer. Roger Ailes, you can hate him, but he built Fox News. He was in Richard Nixon's White House, and he said, hey, let's do GOP TV. Let's do Republican TV, and every day we'll record a couple of newscasts, and we'll put the cassettes on airplanes or the reels of tape on airplanes, and we'll fly them all over the country for local stations to carry. And they couldn't come up with the money to do it. It's called GOP TV. There's a chapter about this in my book, The Crash of 2016, which is why Fox wouldn't invite me on to discuss the book. All the other networks had me on. Well, Roger Ailes is now at the side of Donald Trump and has been through this whole thing. Steve Bannon runs Breitbart, and he's no dummy. This is a guy who understands the media. They're all master media manipulators. I am predicting / expecting that they're going to reprise FDR's fireside chats. During World War II, every week, to kind of reassure a troubled country, every week, FDR sat down and spent anywhere from 10 to 60 minutes with people with his fireside chats on the radio, and 2/3 of Americans listened to them. It was amazing. I'm expecting to see White House TV, only I'm expecting it's going to be fancy and flashy and high production values, and it's going to be done like a reality show and take you inside the White House, and here's a glimpse of the cabinet meeting, and here's what's going on. And the subtext of all of it, it's going to be fascinating and well-produced, but the subtext of all of it will be, here's our meme of the day, right? Here's our thought of the day. Here's how we're going to make things happen. Here's how you should be thinking. It's going to be a master, if it happens, it's going to be a master propaganda operation, and I predict that they're going to point to FDR as the guy who started it. We'll see. And these guys are such master media manipulators. If one cop someplace in the country gets killed by one undocumented alien, it'll become 6 months of the biggest issue in the history of America.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.